The Trial by Fire Chapter 1. The discovery. Laura had felt an uneasy feeling in her stomach for weeks, a feeling she couldn't shake. Daniel, her partner of 7 years, had been distant lately, and she couldn't help but wonder if something was wrong. One night, while he was sleeping soundly beside her, Laura decided to check Daniel's phone. It wasn't something she usually did, but the doubt was consuming her. What she found left her frozen. On Daniel's phone were messages from an unknown woman. The conversations were recent, and although they didn't seem especially romantic, there was something in the tone that set off all her alarms. Who was this woman, and why did Daniel feel the need to hide her existence from her? Laura closed the phone with shaking hands and walked away, struggling to control the avalanche of emotions that threatened to overflow. She couldn't face him yet, not before she understood what was happening. Chapter 2. The confrontation. The next few days were agony for Laura. She tried to act normal, but every time she saw Daniel, a part of her broke a little more. Finally, she couldn't take it anymore. One night after dinner, they sat on the couch and she decided to face the situation. "Daniel, who is Sandra?" she asked, her voice barely contained. Daniel's face instantly hardened. He had been expecting this, but he didn't know when it would come. He knew he couldn't keep hiding it. "She's a friend from work," he replied, but Laura could see the lie behind his eyes. "Don't lie to me, Daniel. I saw the messages," Laura replied, her voice breaking. There was a long silence as they both looked at each other, the air between them heavy with tension. Finally, Daniel sighed and looked down. "It's not what you think, Laura. I'm not having an affair, but there's something I haven't told you." His voice trailed off, unsure of how to continue. Chapter 3. Revelations. What Daniel revealed changed everything. He had been facing problems at work, problems that had led him to a situation he never imagined. Sandra was a colleague who was helping him cover up a mistake that could cost him his career. He was embarrassed and didn't know how to tell Laura, afraid that she would see him as a failure. Laura listened in silence, her heart torn between understanding and betrayal. She understood Daniel's fear, but she couldn't ignore the fact that he had mentioned her and pushed her away. Still, the reason behind all this was more complicated than she had imagined. "Why didn't you tell me, Daniel?" she finally asked, tears in her eyes. "Because I didn't want you to think less of me," Daniel answered truthfully, feeling the weight of his decisions. Chapter 4. The breakup. Despite Daniel's explanation, the trust between them was broken. Laura decided to take some time away from Daniel to think. She left for her sister's house, leaving Daniel alone in the apartment they shared. Days turned into weeks, and as Laura reflected on what had happened, she also remembered the good times they had shared. But would they be enough to save their relationship? On the other hand, Daniel was devastated. He knew he had made mistakes, and every day without Laura was torture. Chapter 5. The decision. Finally, after weeks of separation, Laura and Daniel decided to meet at their favorite place, a park they used to walk together. They both knew that this meeting could be the end or the beginning of a new chapter. They sat on their usual bench, the silence between them heavy but necessary. Laura was the first to speak. "You thought a lot, Daniel. And while I understand why you did it, the truth is that I can't move on if we can't be honest with each other," she said firmly. Daniel considered that this was his last chance to save what they had. "I know, Laura. I failed you and I'm sorry. There are no excuses for what I did, but I want you to know that I am willing to do whatever it takes to regain your trust," he replied, his voice full of regret. Chapter 6. The reconciliation. After a long conversation, where they both exposed their feelings and fears, they decided that their love was strong enough to try again. They agreed to go to couples therapy to work on their issues and rebuild the trust that had been lost. They both knew that the road would not be easy, but they also knew that it was worth fighting for what they had. The decision to move forward together was their trial by fire, one that, in the end, made them stronger. Chapter 7. The future. Over time, Laura and Daniel began to heal. They learned to communicate better and support each other through difficult times. The shadow of what had happened never completely disappeared, but with each passing day, it became less threatening. Laura and Daniel's story is proof that although relationships can face great challenges, If both people are willing to work together, they can overcome any obstacle. True love isn't perfect, but it's what you choose every day, even in the darkest of times.